Hi, folks. Welcome back. And to my new viewers, welcome. From Fox News, Washington Post reporter defends Judge Jackson's inability to define what a woman is. It's complicated. The liberal journalist calls Senator Blackburn's questions to the SCOTUS nominee a bad faith attack. Now, before we get started, I want to ask everybody if they can to share this video or any of my other videos where you can, social media, other websites here on YouTube as well. Email it, the link to maybe your friends or family. If you think my content is worth listening to, please subscribe. Supreme Court nominee Judge Jackson drew criticism for denying knowing how to define a woman during Tuesday's confirmation hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee. However, a liberal reporter from the Washington Post defended Jackson's stunning answer by claiming the definition is actually complicated. Now, I'm a big fan of Senator Blackburn. In fact, maybe someday I'll be a constituent of hers. I live in upstate New York. She's a senator from Tennessee. I'm probably going to be moving to Central Tennessee. And she's an old school type conservative. Now, people are saying, well, asking that question, it was a loaded question. Well, depending on your point of view. I don't think it was loaded. I think it was done on purpose to put her on the spot. Actually, I think that's true, and I don't have a problem with that. But definitions of things are incredibly important for a judge. Let's read on, and I'll tell you what I mean. National correspondent Philip Bum slammed Senator Blackburn, Republican from Tennessee, for asking the questions and called it a bad faith attack in his analysis. The liberal journalist compared identifying gender to identifying a color. Even things like colors involve simply introducing more and more refined demonstrations of the category. Yeah, that's word salad. As philosophers tell us, language is necessarily imprecise, but it's our only way of describing the world. So I ask you, in what context is a woman, he wrote? Keeping up with the color analogy, which is a terrible analogy, Bum claimed the definition of red like woman simply sounds like it can't be complicated. Red is an absorption of a certain wavelength. What definition do you want? Bump also attacked Blackburn for quoting the judge's praise for the progressive education at Georgetown Day School, where she serves on the board of trustees, and asking the judge if she supports schools teaching kids they can choose their gender. Bump called this an obvious bad faith ploy. That was so bad. Well, no, actually, you're going to get some cases here. And she already said, the Judge Jackson said during her confirmation hearing, that when I shouldn't say if, but when the Harvard, I believe it is, discrimination case goes before the Supreme Court, she's going to recuse herself. So you have to ask yourself how many other things she's going to recuse herself for, or have an opinion on the matter before the case is heard. That's really the issue here. Now, those of you that think, well, it doesn't matter if the person is a woman, some people think the person isn't a woman, blah, blah, blah. Well, when you're dealing with law, it does. And I'll tell you what I mean. Say you are a trans woman and you apply for a loan through the federal government or the state, wherever you live, to start a business, a grant, a low-interest loan, whatever it is, and it's for women only. Now, I think that's ridiculous. I think it's wrong, but it's not the issue. Do you qualify? Can any male say, I am now a trans woman and apply for loans? Can you? Can you go into college and say that I'm a certain race, a certain gender? I mean, it gets complicated. He's right. It is complicated. But the thing of it is, though, there's so many loose ends on this thing that it's really hard to pin it down. The journalist suggested Blackburn's claims about the school pushing transgender ideology and students couldn't be verified. Well, we know what's happening. I mean, they can tout it in something else. Reporters' efforts to determine whether it's true came up short, including after asking Washburn's office. Bump wrote, however, a simple Google search shows the Georgetown Day School's website is full of photos and pages touting their transgender reading days, transgender visibility signs, political activism, elementary school students holding up their transgender rights artwork. Yeah, elementary school, I'm sorry. I really don't have any problem with CRT either. It's critical race theory. If you want to put it down as a college course, as an elective, go ahead. You're an adult. I'll tell you the truth. At one time, it was Democrat-led, by the way. It was in the early 1900s. It was called eugenics. And it was a college course taught by accredited professors. And it was read upon and studied by millions of people. Is eugenics evil and wrong? Yeah, it's real bad. But so you can't do that to children. How would you like to teach a eugenics course, even though you might muffle it down a little bit and call it something else, to elementary school kids? There's some things that schools just shouldn't be involved in, period. Continuing her defense of Jackson, Bump suggested Blackburn's quotation of the late Justice Ginsburg's opinion in 1996 on physical differences between men and women was outdated. What have we found out in 26 years that we didn't know for the last, we'll say 10,000 plus years, maybe even longer? I'll say 10,000. That's a pretty good number. I'm sure it's much longer than that. What's outdated? Honestly and truly. Now, I'm on the edge here. I've got one strike against my channel already, so I can't go into too much detail because of the nature of YouTube. You mentioned this issue. You mentioned COVID treatment or alternative treatments or the 2020 election and some of the things that went on. You're automatically in the doghouse. So I can't go into detail. I just asked the question. He says, in his defense of Judge Jackson, what has changed? It's outdated now. She said that in 1996, rest her soul, because she's passed away. Now, what has changed in 26 years? It's a legitimate question. What matters here is the argument made by Ginsburg was specific to the case at hand. Nor was Ginsburg adjudicating definitions of men and women, but rather the difference in access that our general understanding of those terms, particularly in 1996, met in the context of the exclusions in place at VMI. Apparently, women weren't allowed in VMI at the time. That's Virginia Military Institute, which is right down the street from Stonewall Jackson's house. I was there not too long ago. And it isn't just about VMI. What about Title IX? That's been pushed and billions of dollars spent to allow women to have access, at least in theory, to sports that the men or boys participate in. Equal playing field. That's been pushed. Title IX has been used and misused for years. But still, the point still remains. Like I mentioned about the loans, a business loan, Title IX. There's a lot of things involved here. He's right, it is complicated. But it's not complicated because you can't figure out if a man is a man and a woman is a woman. It's complicated because everything in between. What's to stop people from misusing, I'll call it a privilege for lack of a better term? And the answer is really nothing. Pump doubled down on his take later, calling the question, what is a woman, an unanswerable question. It's not really. She said she's not a biologist, but she's a federal court judge going to be on the Supreme Court. That definition is going to matter. There's a cottage industry of unanswerable questions and then aha-ing when the question goes unanswered. Because some of these questions you can't answer, and I can't go into detail why, because I'll be struck down by YouTube. And that's sad. Despite claiming it was too complicated to answer what the definition of woman is, Bump had no problem shooting down the Hunter Biden laptop story as a conspiracy theory. This past week, the New York Times confirmed the laptop was authentic after the media spent the 2020 election cycle denying it was real and suggested it was Russian disinformation. Yeah. So what? So there's Judge Jackson, and she'll be confirmed. But is she an ideologue? Does she see her ideology first and law second? That's the real question. And that's indirectly what Senator Blackburn was asking. Now, you might think the law is unfair. That's certainly your prerogative. Now, is asking, what is a woman by definition, a gotcha question? Yeah, it is. But it's also relevant. It isn't just about trans rights or the trans issue at hand. It's about how she thinks and other things. She's been chastised and criticized for her leniency concerning certain actions towards children from adults. We'll put it that way, because you can't say the words, the algorithm will kill this video worse than they already do. Yeah, there's several things. We want to know what you think ideology-wise on certain issues, because the way it works is the law comes first, ideology second. With progressives, it's the ideology first, the law second. How does that go? It's AOC's famous stupid line. It's better to be morally correct and factually right. And that's the way they think. And the definitions change all the time. So it's the Supreme Court justice. How are you supposed to determine cases that come up if you don't know what the definitions are? It's exactly like we both speak the same language, English, but we're using different dictionaries. And how the hell do you govern? And how the hell do you judge over cases if the words we're using have different definitions to what the mainstream uses them for? You can't communicate. And I think, frankly, that's by design. But even if it isn't, it's still an issue. She's going to get confirmed. She'll squeak by because I believe it was Breyer that retired. He wanted to get it in there because he knows that the next cycle this November, the Democrats are going to lose both the House and Senate. And he got out with the getting out was good. Would I have picked a different person? Yes. And by the way, for whatever is worth department, I believe it was in 1993, but don't quote me. It was then Senator Joe Biden that adamantly threatened a filibuster and all kinds of havoc in the Senate on the confirmation of a black woman leading up to the Supreme Court. I forget her name. He was adamant about not appointing her. Why did they say on the QT? Well, they whispered to reporters off the record. It was a Republican president that put her up, being the black woman to the Supreme Court in 93. And the Democrats wanted to take credit for putting the first one on there. And plus the fact that just rubbed me the wrong way. The president actually said, before this Judge Jackson was nominated, I'm going to appoint a black woman. It would have been interesting if they'd asked for that announcement, what is Joe Biden, or should be respectful, President Biden's opinion is what a woman is. That would have been interesting. What's your opinion on what black is? And that's what we come down to. Come down to this foolishness. I'm not saying Senator Blackburn is foolish. I think she did exactly the right thing to expose the ideology over the constitutional law. And that's always been the issue with leftists, always. She'll get confirmed, and we'll move on, and that's the way it is. Until next time, goodbye and good luck.